Hey guys, welcome back to the AWS Cloud Demos. My name is Murli, and in today's demo we will talk about Terraform and how we can take advantage of Terraform to deploy our AWS infrastructure with ease and effectively, and using this infrastructure as code tool. Okay, so basically Terraform is an infrastructure as code tool which was developed by HashiCorp that simplifies the process of building, changing, managing the cloud and on-premises in resources. Okay, so it enables organizations to provision and configure the infrastructure through code, so ensuring that the infrastructure is consistent, versioned, and can also be managed efficiently. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and open up the terraform.io website. Okay, and in here you can see there are various providers which you can use Terraform with. For example, you can use the Terraform with AWS, and you can use with GCP, Azure, and there are a lot of other platforms that you could use with the Terraform. Okay, so for our demo in AWS Cloud Demos, we will talk about how we can use Terraform and how we can deploy infrastructure with an ease using this Terraform only on AWS. Okay, so if you open up this website, then go ahead and open up the registry, and this is where we're going to find out our providers. So if you can click on the browse providers right here, so you can see there are various providers over here, okay, which works with Terraform. So in our examples we will be working with the AWS. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on AWS and go to the documentation, which is pretty easy to find out. So to begin talking about AWS Terraform, how we can use it. So basically in this demo we will begin with by creating a VPC, and then we will try to deploy our EC2 instance. Okay, so we will begin with creating a AWS user, setup and administrator access. Okay, and then we will use VS Code to set up the AWS Toolkit and various other VS Code extensions which work very well with Terraform. Okay, and also we will go to the documentation and see how to pick things from the documentation and stuff like that. And also we will talk about Terraform state and various other commands that we will be using in this demo. And finally we will have a deployed version of a EC2 instance in our VPC. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation here, and you can see this is where the AWS provider starts with. So basically we will be using a different like I said previously, we will be having a different providers, but in our case we will be using a AWS provider to begin with for our Terraform to deploy our infrastructure on AWS. Okay, so to begin with, let's go ahead and install Terraform in your local machines. Okay, so you can see the instructions clearly here. I can paste this link in the description box below so that you can just copy paste these commands. If you are in Mac OS, then follow this. You have Windows and Linux and etc. Okay, so for this, in order to work with the Terraform, so make sure you have the Terraform installed in your local. So once you have Terraform installed in your local, so what you could do is you could go ahead and open up your terminal. So we will open up the terminal, go to and type Terraform minus version. So you should have the latest version of the Terraform, and you should also have the provider registry in your local. Okay, so once you have this Terraform installed, so let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. So in here, like I said, we will be talking about the AWS Terraform extensions, which will help you work with Terraform. Okay, so for example, let me find out some of the extensions that you might require for this demos. Let us make this demo easy for you. Okay, so here you can see there are some of the extensions that I've already installed. So for example, you can see this extension Terraform, which I think I've already installed this. And if you scroll down a bit, you should make sure you have installed a Terraform doc snippets, which will allow you to get the Terraform code directly from the docs into your Terraform files. Okay, we'll see how it works. Okay, and then if I scroll down a bit, you can also see Terraform syntax highlighter, so you can see the Terraform format on save, which is also installed. I will list out all the extensions that is required for you if, in order to work. Okay, so I've also installed Terraform Graph so that we can see the dependencies between various services that we have used in our Terraform. Okay, and also make sure that you have installed AWS Toolkit, and we will see why we need AWS Toolkit. So make sure you install this extension as well, so that we will be able to directly query our infrastructure and see what are the services that are created after we do a Terraform apply. Okay, so once you have all your extensions ready, so what I would like to do is let me begin with by creating a AWS user, and I will log in with that user. Okay, and then I will also set up a AWS credentials profile so that I can use it with the Terraform code. Okay, so if you have already installed AWS Toolkit, so go ahead to your terminal and type Terraform. Sorry, you can type cat .aws/credentials. In this file you should be able to see your profile and also your access key and secret key. Okay, so if you have already installed, then you can use this AWS credentials, and you can use this to build your infrastructure. Okay, for those who haven't created this AWS configure yet, I'm going to show you the way that I've done, so it will be easy for you to follow as well. Okay, make sure that IAM user that you create has the administrator access, so that we will be able to deploy the infrastructure without the limit. Okay, okay, then let's go ahead and create a user and assign the permissions, and then let's configure that user in our local system. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our AWS console, and open up our IAM from the search box here. So click on IAM, go to the IAM, and we'll create a user and assign the administrative access. Okay, so let's go to click on users on the left side and create a user. Okay, so I'm going to create a user called Murli, and uncheck this. Click on next, and now if I go to attach policies directly, so and here I'm gonna assign administrator access that you see here. Just select that box and go ahead and click on next. So I'm trying to assign administrator access to my user. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create the user. Okay, so I've created my user. Okay, and if I go to security credentials in here, and if you scroll down a bit, and you can now create a access keys for this particular user, so that we will use this user for our Terraform infrastructure. Okay, so let's go ahead and create access key, and I'm going to use CLI for this user, and then select the I understand about recommendation and go ahead and click on next, and description, I think you can leave that box empty, and there you go, and now you have your access key and a secret key. Okay, so now you can download the CSV file if you want, or maybe you can simply copy paste the the access key and the secret key. Okay, so let me go back to the Visual Studio Code, where I have already installed my AWS extension. You see on the left side, so this AWS extension, which is coming from the AWS Toolkit. So if you click on the AWS Toolkit, this is something which is connected to my default profile, but if you want to create from scratch, you will see something different here, where you should be able to connect your AWS account. So when I click on connect to AWS, so I have my profile selected here. Okay, so I'm going to add a new connection over here, and if I scroll down a bit, for example, I want to use AWS Explorer, click on that, and if I scroll down or expand, add another IAM credentials. So this is where you're gonna add your IAM credentials. Okay, so now let me choose my profile name as Murli. Okay, and this is already there, so I'm gonna make this a Terraform profile name. Okay, I'm gonna copy the access key that I have, paste the access key, and I'm going to choose the secret key. Okay, paste the secret key, add to profile. Okay, all right, so now we have connected our IAM credentials. Okay, so we have set up our AWS profile. Okay, and now let me go ahead and start creating files for our demo. Okay, so in our demo, like I said, we will be creating a VPC, we will be creating a EC2 instance, and we will be deploying an EC2 instance to our VPC. Okay, inside our VPC. Okay, and also we will use some user data in the EC2, so that as soon as your server is spun up, then you should be able to see a default web page in your application. So we will be using Apache 2 for that. Okay, so I will talk about the setup on the EC2 side of things a bit later, but let's begin by creating the provider. Okay, so if I go back to the documentation here, so for the AWS provider, we should start beginning by creating our Terraform. This is the required provider that we want. Okay, so For that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my VS Code, okay, and create a first file which is our providers. Okay, so this is our providers file. Okay, I'm going to paste the Terraform over here. Okay, so this is my AWS provider. So I'm telling Terraform that I would like to connect to the AWS, and I would like to use that provider to deploy my infrastructure. Okay, so now that you have this provider, this is just a configuration to the AWS. Okay, so now what we can do is we will be creating a provider to the actual AWS. Okay, so if I go to this one, so like you see, this is where you will configure the AWS provider. Okay, so let me copy that thing and open up my providers file and just paste that. Okay, so my default region is US East 1, and you can see that my this is my required provider. Okay, and by this by provider AWS, we are telling that we are providing the information to access AWS specifically. So we are telling to connect to the AWS here. Okay, and the one above is nothing but this provides a configuration to the AWS. Okay, so I hope that is clear. And now that we have created our AWS, okay, provider, and now if I go to the documentation again, so if I go down below a bit and the authentication and configuration section, if I scroll down a bit, there are three different ways to connect to your AWS. Okay, so one, you can directly provide a access key and secret key here to connect to your AWS. And if you scroll down a bit, also you can export the AWS access keys and secret keys in order to connect Terraform to your AWS. Okay, so this is another way where you can pass the environment variables. You can also use access keys and secret key directly in your code, or maybe there is another elegant way to do this where you can see there is a shared credential files where you can actually pass your credential files so that you should be able to connect to your AWS account. Okay, and also you mentioned the profile. Remember, we have created a Terraform profile. Okay, so we will be using Terraform profile. Okay, so let's copy these things from here. Okay, and go back to your provider and copy paste that. Okay, now here you can see Terraform share credentials, and I would like to access my AWS credentials. So for that, I'm gonna copy paste my path where I have my AWS credentials like so. Okay, and make sure you have the correct path if you're in Windows, then make sure you have a right path. Okay, and now go to custom profile, remove the custom profile and add Terraform. Okay, so this is the profile that we have created. All right, failed to save the file is new. Okay, that's fine, let me overwrite that. All right, so now that we have created we are telling Terraform that the required provider is AWS, and we are telling our Terraform to connect with AWS using these credentials and use my profile Terraform. All right, so that's how we are using the providers. Okay, so this is the beginning, this is the first steps to connect to your AWS. Okay, and now we can start creating our actual VPC, and then we will also create our data sources from our for our EC2 instance. Okay, so let me create a file called main.tf. So this file will basically contain our VPC, our subnets, our route tables and security groups and all that stuff. Okay, so main.tf, so you may ask me a question: how does Terraform know that how to create these resources and stuff like that? So what Terraform does in the behind is that it creates a dependency graph, so it knows which infrastructure you're trying to create and what are the dependencies that you have and how to create that. We will see later by generating a Terraform graph file. Okay, so now in the main.tf, let's begin with creating a AWS VPC. So to begin that, if I go to the extensions again, like I said previously, I have Terraform doc snippets. So if you have this extension already installed for your Visual Studio Code, it is pretty easy for us to create this infrastructure without even looking at the documentation. For example, for me, if I want to find out how I create a VPC, go here and type VPC and under resources, okay, so if I scroll all the way to the bottom, so you can see how difficult it is for me to find out default VPC here. So you can see it is very difficult for me to find out how we can create a VPC. Okay, for example, if I do VPC here, if I go all the way to the top, you should be able to see the VPC somewhere here, but that's fine. It's pretty difficult for me to find out from the documentation, or maybe you can use the top level search bar. Or okay, like you see, it's pretty difficult for me to find out what exactly I'm looking for. So in this case, you have this extension already installed in your local Terraform doc snippets. It's pretty easy for me to create these resources. For example, in order to create a VPC and a CIDR block from the documentation, I simply use tf hyphen resource, or maybe simply tf AWS resource VPC. So you can see I have tf AWS resource VPC, and I click enter. So you can see this is a default VPC that I would like to create in using my Terraform. So it's pretty easy for me to get this code from the documentation, where it suggests with a default CIDR block 10.0.0.0/16. So you can see how easy we can create our resource, AWS VPC resource. But if I go back to the documentation, okay, I need to find out the VPC that I would like to search for. Should be, if I go all the way, maybe click this one. Yeah, so you can see the basic usage, example usage, where you can have the resource AWS VPC. So if I go back to my code, you can see the same thing we have done from our doc snippets without even looking into the documentation. Okay, so if I scroll down all the way to the bottom, so I would like to do a couple of things where I want to enable the DNS host names and DNS support for our VPC. Okay, so for that, if I go back to my VPC and just type enable underscore DNS support equals true, I want to add this, oops, Control Z, and then I also want to enable DNS host names. Okay, so we will be using we'll be enabling a DNS support and DNS host names. Okay, and also make sure you have added the tags. Okay, just to make sure that we recognize our VPC with name something called dev VPC. Let's say we are creating this infrastructure for our development purpose, so we will be naming our VPC using something, you know, a prefix for your VPC, which helps you easy to identify what we are trying to create. Okay, so in this case we are trying to use dev VPC. Okay, so just close that window. I hope this is pretty visible. Okay, and now, okay, now that it creates our VPC, a default VPC that we want in our AWS, and with the default CIDR block, you can always change the CIDR block to whatever you may require. Okay, so now if I okay, now that we have created AWS VPC, now let's create our AWS subnet. Okay, so resource, okay, so let me type AWS tf AWS resource subnet, and you can see there is a suggestion. Okay, so just hit enter. So you can see we have created our subnet with a subnet ID which is called main, and in this case we have used AWS VPC, which is also main. Okay, it doesn't matter as long as you have the correct link between your subnet and VPC. So if you see in here VPC ID, we are mentioning the VPC ID here, saying that this subnet belongs to this VPC with a VPC ID that we have created here, AWS VPC, with a main AWS VPC dot main dot ID. Okay, we'll see how we are using this ID a bit later, and when we talk about Terraform state. Okay, we will talk about some of the commands that we are going to use in this demo. Okay, so now that you can see AWS VPC and subnet, we are now created AWS subnet with a AWS. This is basically a public subnet. Okay, so maybe you can name this as dev public. Okay, so this is my public subnet which I have attached to my AWS VPC. Okay, with a CIDR block of this one which has a VPC. Okay, now that we have created our subnet, we have also created our VPC, and next in order to allow our EC2 to have a connection with the outside world, we want our VPC to be attached with the internet gateway. Okay, so how we create internet gateway? Again, it is pretty simple. We will create AWS internet gateway using something called TF AWS resource internet gateway. Okay, so if you see here, we have the internet gateway and hit enter. So you should be presented with a default code which is from your documentation again. Okay, so this is the gateway that I want to create, and again it is connected to my VPC, which is AWS VPC.main.id. Okay, so this resource is connected to my VPC. Okay, and now because this is my internet gateway, I'm going to name this something called I've attached a tag called main-gateway. Okay, so this is my AWS gateway, so that my EC2 instance can talk to the outside world. Okay, all right, so after internet gateway, what else we need to have in order to create this infrastructure where my EC2 will be launched inside the VPC. Okay, so now that we have allowed our internet gateway, which allows the access to the internet, now we need to have the route tables and routes in order to transfer the outside world requests from anywhere. Like for example 0.0.0.0, we will get the request from outside world, and then we will transfer that to our route table, and the route table will decide where to send that request to, right? So we want to send that request to our EC2 instance, okay, which is hosted inside our public subnet in our AWS VPC. So now that you have created the internet gateway, we will be creating a resource called route table, AWS route table. For example, AWS resource and then route table. Okay, there you go. So you see AWS resource route table. So if I hit enter, so you can see the default code that you want to connect to your AWS VPC. So you can see we have already connected to our AWS VPC, which we have created above, which is aws.main.id. And if I scroll down a bit, so you can see we are connected to our VPC, and this route table is connected to our VPC. Okay, so now that we have created our AWS route table, so by declaring our routes, AWS route. Okay, so let me delete the routes over here, and I will create a separate route. Okay, and also name this as dev public route table. Okay, so let's name that in that way. And now also let's create a route. Okay, as we have discussed, we will create route separately. Okay, now again tf AWS resource route. Okay, so now you can see the AWS route which we have from the doc snippets. So this is my, so make sure you have a different names. So you have route table, which is RT, and route, which is R. Okay, so now the route table ID is something which we have created here. Okay, so we're gonna use the same route table ID. For example, AWS route table dot RT dot ID. This is my route table ID. I would like to connect my route to the route table ID. And what is the destination CIDR here? The destination CIDR is nothing but our IP, our public IP, which is nothing but this one. We will be having this destination, and the gateway ID, we should also be connecting our route to the gateway, our internet gateway. So I'm gonna remove the peering connection for now and declare AWS or maybe it's simply gateway underscore ID. I think you can refer to the documentation again in order to understand what we are trying to do here. gateway.id, and I hope this is the GW that we have created here. Yeah, there you go. So AWS Internet Gateway.gw.id is the gateway ID that I'm referring to when I'm trying to connect my AWS route. I've connected my route to the route table and also connected to the gateway, so that whenever there's a request coming from the outside world, that will route it to my AWS route table as I have declared it here, and it depends on AWS route table dot rt. Okay, so this is what it depends on. Okay, all right. So now that we have discussed how we are going to create our AWS route table and stuff like that, and now we're gonna need to have the table association, the route table association, in order to connect our route table to a particular to our public subnet, right? So in order to connect our route table to our public subnet, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our resource again, tf AWS resource, and then it's gonna be our route table association. So the one so this one, right? So now if I hit enter, so you can see our route table association will be with our subnet ID and the route table ID, right? So now we have created our subnet, which is our public subnet, as we have seen above. Just copy the main subnet name, which is this one, and also connect our association with the route table, which is here. Okay, and which is nothing but rt or rt.id. okay, just override that. I'm not sure why it is asking for the permission, but that's totally fine. And you can also name this as rt association. So in order to understand what we are trying to create here, you should have some basics with AWS VPC and how we create the AWS VPC, right? So basically in VPC we create our internet gateway, and we create our subnets, public subnets, private subnets. We create our internet gateway to connect to the internet. We create our route tables, associations, and stuff like that. Okay, so in order to set up our VPC. Okay, so now that we have finished our route table association, okay, and now let's create so we are pretty much done with setting up our VPC, okay, except one thing, which is nothing but our security groups. Okay, so we will set up the security ingress and egress rules, AWS security groups, so that we will be defining these for our VPC. So we will allow only a particular traffic from a particular ports. For example, let's say for this demo we will be allowing traffic from 443, 80, and 22. So which is nothing but 22 is for SSH access to your EC2 instance. So we will see how it works with the EC2 instance SSH access. Okay, and then we will also allow HTTP port, which is 80, and also we will allow HTTPS, which is 443. Okay, and okay, so now let's see how we're going to create this security group and how we will attach to our VPC. Okay, so again, we will be creating a security group resource, which is tf AWS resource security group. So like you see, there's a security group which we have in the Terraform doc snippets. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit enter, which is the first one. Okay, so now like you see, we are now having the AWS security group, the ingress and egress rules that I've just talked about. So basically by default you have 443 allow TLS, but like I said, we will be allowing 3 different ports for our EC2 instance, so that we will be able to SSH and we will be able to access the application on HTTPS and HTTP. Okay, now let's rename this to allow not just TLS. We will have something allow security groups, allow TLS. I think I can name this or maybe you can name this dev SG, dev security group, allow inbound traffic, and also like we have seen above, AWS the resource which has name main and also the ID. If I scroll down a bit, come back to your security group, you can see AWS VPC main, and we are trying to access our VPC which we have created above. Okay, from the ingress rules, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called locals. Basically, it's pretty similar to the variables, but we will talk about locals and variables and Terraform variables in the upcoming videos. But for now, simply follow this. What we are trying to do is we are trying to create TF locals. For example, I'm going to use TF locals. Yeah, and you can use this as a variable. For example, ports in, and we will be using like we have discussed, we will be allowing 3 different ports, which is 443, 80, and our SSH port. Okay, and now also we will ports which are out are gonna be, I'm gonna allow everything. Just hit save, or maybe just override. Looks like some permission issue. All right, so we have created our locals, which is amazing. By the way, I would like to show a command where which allows you to format this file. Basically, you can see this is not indented properly, which is because I'm not using the formatter extension, but you have a formatter called Terraform format. If you type Terraform format on save, you can see you have this installed, but in my case it was not working for some reason, but I need to find out why. But if you have installed this and restart your Visual Studio Code, it should work, it should format automatically. Okay, so you don't need to do what I'm trying to do, but I want to show you how we can format this file using our command which was given by Terraform. I'm just going to show you. If I scroll up above, where's the code? I want to see. Looks like it's formatted somehow. Maybe it's because I've saved it. I don't know. I'm just gonna indent that again and click on save. Did it format? No. Okay, so I'm gonna show a command which will let you format this file. For example, bring this down a bit, and okay, I hope this is visible. Let's clear my console one time. Okay, there you go. Just clear it out, and now I'm gonna do Terraform. Did it format again? Looks like it formatted again for some reason. Okay, so let me try to. Okay, so it is not formatted yet. Okay, so maybe so there's a command where you can format your code, your Terraform code. So for example, if you type Terraform fmt like so and hit enter, that should automatically format your file. You can try this command to format your Terraform files. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many files you have here, you just enter this command, it should automatically format your Terraform files. Okay, in my case it has formatted somehow. I think it was because of that extension, which is weird, but yeah, I hope you get the idea basically. Yeah, so let me now go back to the code and let's write some code over here. So we have our locals which we have defined. All right, and now I'm going to copy paste code which will allow you to dynamically loop through these ports and create the rules, ingress rules. Okay, so let me copy paste that for you and just remove the ingress and paste it. Okay, all right, so now you see this is dynamic ingress rules where for each ports in. Okay, so we are iterating through these ports 443, 80, and 222, and we are creating a ingress rule which has the value and which allows you to access your EC2 instance on these ports. Okay, it is as simple as that. And also we will do the same thing for our egress rules. Okay, and if I scroll down a bit and replace this. All right, so we have now created a dynamic egress rule where we will be looping through the ports, which is this one, and we will allow access public. So -1 here indicates that this is to any protocol. Okay, so we will be allowing access, outbound access, okay, to any protocol. And this is how dynamically you can create your security groups. All right. All right. So if I scroll down a bit and also also rename the tag over here, which is pretty easy. And now that you have created your VPC, your subnet, your public subnet, your internet gateway, route tables, routes, table associations, security groups, and we have also attached that security group to our VPC. Okay, we have had the dynamic ingress rules and dynamic egress rules. All right, which is a pretty much I think we have created what we need. Okay, if I scroll down all the way to the bottom, and one more thing I forgot to mention, that I would like to create a AWS key pair for my EC2 instance, so that we will have the SSH access. Okay, so for that I'm going to type AWS, and now this is again a resource and key pair. So yeah, there you go, and now hit enter. So you can see this is our AWS key pair, which we will be using to connect to our EC2 instance. Okay, so let's change the key name, which something my key or something like that, and in the public key for now you can get rid of this stuff. Okay, okay, so one sec, let me just scroll to the left. Yeah, and what I'm going to do, instead of the default one, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a key. Okay, and I will be using that key using a file. Okay, so for example something like this, mykey.pub. so this is my key which I would like to use to connect to my EC2 instance. So how do you create a key? So well, it's pretty simple. So go to if you have this tool SSH Keygen, so I hope you should, if you are using Windows related tools, probably you need to check if SSH Keygen is supported in Windows, but I'm sure it is supported in Mac and also Linux. So I'm going to use SSH Keygen, and now use -F and type my key, and that's a key name, and hit enter and leave these defaults, hit enter, and that should be able to create your example key in here. So we have successfully created our SSH key. Okay, and I'm going to use that key in my AWS key pair to connect to my EC2 instance. All right, so I think we are now pretty much done with this main file where we have created our VPC subnets, AWS key pair, and everything. Okay, so now and also we have created our providers, as we have discussed previously, why we use these providers and how we have created this VPC. And now let's move on and also now create something called data sources. Okay, so we will be discussing about data sources now. Let me create a file called data sources. All right, so the data sources is, for example, we need AWS AMI as a data source for creating our EC2 instance, right? So for that reason, I'm going to create my AWS AMI example image that I would like to spin up my EC2 instance. So how do you create your data source AWS AMI? Well, it's pretty simple. You type tf AWS hyphen and then type AMI data AMI. So you can see you have the data AMI, just hit enter. So there you go. This is a simple AWS AMI example that we would like to create for this demo. Okay, so maybe you can get rid of this executable users, leave the most recent, and probably you can remove the regex as well, and also filter. Probably you just need one filter. Maybe you can use multiple filters if you want, but in my case I'm just going to use one filter which has a name, and we will see how we're going to get owners, and also how we're going to get the filter values. Okay, okay, so let me go to the terminal, my console, okay, where we have created previously. Now I'm going to go to EC2 and click on the EC2, and now click on the launch instance over here, and now choose Ubuntu from the list, and we're going to choose the I think you can choose the free tier eligible one, which is this one. Okay, and copy the AMI ID that you see here, and if I go to, we are using T2 micro. Okay, and if I go to AMIs from here, just from the drop down, choose the public images, paste the AMI ID here. Okay, so there you go, you have these three AMIs, and select the one which has this one, and if I expand the one here, so you can see this is the AMI ID that I would like to use for this demo. Okay, and then simply copy the owner account ID from here, just go back to your code and paste the ID in here, and also go back in here and copy the Ubuntu AMI name and go to this one, because we are having the filter with this one. Paste Ubuntu, and I think you can just put star in here. You don't need the specific date version, just you can put star if you want. Okay, all right, so now that we have created our AWS AMI example data source, so now it is the time for us to create our EC2 instance. So how I'm going to create EC2 instance? df AWS resource instance. So you can see this is my instance, and if I click enter, so if I scroll down a bit, I think it is also creating the data source, which I think we have already created above. So if you can see, this is the data source that we have already created, but it is also giving the same thing over here. I think you can just simply remove that, or if you haven't created this one, you can just simply follow the other one. Okay, so in my case, I'm just gonna go ahead and use this data source AWS AMI. Okay, and then I'm gonna use the resource AWS instance, and I would call this my EC2 instance. Okay, so this is my EC2 instance. I would like to create AWS instance. Tell Terraform that I would like to create AWS instance with the name my EC2 instance. Okay, now where is our AWS AMI? So our AMI is here, data.aws.ami.example, in this case .id. Okay, so we will see how we're going to create where we are getting these IDs from. Okay, in some time. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to create a D2 micro instance. All right, and then also set up the key name which we have created previously, which is AWS Key Pair. I think if you go back to your main.tf file, if I scroll down a bit, you should see your AWS key pair .deployer. Close this main.tf, close this one as well. Data source, save this file. In here, key pair, AWS key pair .deployer .id is what my key pair name is. Okay, so we are just referencing the key pair that we have created in the main.tf with our EC2 instance. All right, and then I'm going to use VPC security groups, security group IDs. I'm going to add the ID in a moment, and I'm going to use the subnet ID. Okay, and that is something called AWS subnet dot, what is the subnet name that we have created here in main? So if I scroll up, you can see main, right? And if I go back to data sources, subnet dot main dot id, and then also create the user data. The user data is something that is a default script. As soon as your EC2 instance starts, this user data is going to create an example page. Okay, so that page will basically is just a HTML file. As soon as you create the EC2 instance, it will spin up your server with the default HTML file. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to run a script which will automatically create a simple script. Okay, let's see how that works. Okay, so now, like previously we have referenced the file, and now for user data we are going to create something called user data.tpl file. TPL file is nothing but a template file. I'm going to show you shortly how it works. Path.module, and I'm going to use user data.tpl. Okay, so this is the file that we are going to create in our root application, and I'm going to name this as user data.tpl. All right, so in the user data.tpl we will be creating a sample example script. Okay, something like, I'm just going to copy paste just to save some time. So basically we are creating um, an example template file. This is a bash script which will automatically install Apache 2, and I'm gonna add this particular line to my index.html file. So as soon as your instance, EC2 instance starts, I'm just gonna go to the IP address, and that should show me this message. Okay, and that's all it is doing. That simple. It is that simple. Okay, this is simple template file, and I'm referencing that template file in my EC2 instance here. Okay, I hope you understand that, but I think it will be more clear when I start showing you the EC2 instance. Okay, so for now, just remember that this script is going to create an example HTML file which says hello from AWS Cloud Demos. Okay, all right, so now that we have created our user data, we have created subnet, we are um, creating our AWS instance inside this public subnet that we have created earlier. And coming to this one, we have created our security group. If you reference that name, so that name is something like AWS security group dot, I think we have named that as sgs dot id love sg. So if I go to my main file again, if I scroll all the way to the bottom, you should be able to see my security group. So AWS security group dot love sgs dot id. Okay, so I'm referencing that security group for my VPC, which has access to 443.80, and also I have access to the SSH to my EC2 instance. All right, so we have successfully created our EC2 instance, and also you can have an extra volume if you want. Also you can mention the root block device which has a volume size. I'm just defining the size that my instance should have, and just save that. It should automatically be formatted. Let's wait for it. And then also you can name the tag something like node. If it doesn't format for you, like I said, you can simply go ahead and run Terraform format, and that should automatically format your file. There you go, successfully nicely formatted and indented, and simply save the file. And yeah, and there you go. So now we have created our EC2 instance. So we basically created our infrastructure from scratch. We have created our AWS VPC, we have created a subnet, route table, routes, table association, security group, and we have allowed certain ports to our EC2 instance. And also we have created key pair. And if I go to my data sources, I've created my AWS AMI, which I'm going to use in my future demos on the Terraform. And you can see the AWS AMI, which will allow you to spin up your EC2 instance with this particular AMI. Okay, so we have taken that image, and we have also added the subnet that we want to use for our EC2 instance. We have also referenced our AMI T2 micro, and we have also referenced our key pair, and we have referenced our security groups and subnet IDs and user data like we have discussed. Okay, so now that we are done with setting up our infrastructure, so what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to start a few commands. And how you initialize your Terraform application is by typing Terraform init. So basically when you hit init, it will download all the packages that it wants, and it will install the the provider that we have referenced in our code, which is HashiCorp AWS. And then it's going to initialize our application with a log file basically. So we will talk about a log file in a bit. So now that your Terraform has been successfully initialized, what I'm going to do is just clear this terminal and type Terraform apply. So before apply, type Terraform plan. So basically we want to see what Terraform code is trying to create in our AWS. Okay, so in here when you type plan and Terraform plan. So what it does is basically it creates a plan for you, and what we are going to create in our AWS environment. Looks like something got messed up. This is the name that we have referenced, which is AWS VPC main in a main.tf file, and this is our and reference to undeclared resource, which is on main.tf, which is AWS route table. So I think we are referencing a wrong and with the wrong name. So if I pull this down a bit, if I go to route table, if I go to main.tf file, okay, and scroll down a bit to route table, for example this one, you see, remember we have created our VPC with a name main, right? So if I go up, you can see we have referenced main everywhere, but yeah, somehow I have overlooked on it. Now let me clear the console again and try to do a Terraform plan one more time. You should be able to see, okay, so there's one more, which is on main.tf, reference type must allow at least one attribute access specifying the resource name. Okay. Okay. Scroll up. This is main. Dev VPC. Okay. Looks like I have missed the codes over there, and let's pull this up again and try another time. So plan, let's wait for it. It should be able to show you what is the infrastructure that you're trying to create. There you go. So if I maximize this window and scroll all the way to the top, so you can see it is now creating the AWS instance, which is my EC2 instance. So some of these attributes, properties of your EC2 instance, you see all these are known after apply. So we will see what apply is in a moment. Okay, so basically these things over here, these are all part of your your EC2 instance, which has all this information. So all this information is only known after you perform terraform.apply. Okay, and if I scroll down a bit more, so you can see on the left side we are creating the AWS internet gateway, we are creating the key pair. So you can see my public key over here, which I have generated earlier. There's a root table, we have root table association, security groups, and you can see is my security groups. I am allowing the security groups on 22, on 443, and also probably 80, and we are creating a subnet, VPC, and all that stuff. Okay, so there are going to be 9 resources that we are trying to add to our AWS infrastructure. Okay, okay, so let me clear this out and do Terraform apply. Okay, so let me apply this, the plan that we have just created. So we will apply the changes to our AWS account. Let's see what it's going to do. So it is asking for a confirmation. Let's hit yes. Okay. So by the way, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, don't forget to like this video if you like it, and please stay tuned to the channel. If you subscribe to my channel, I will be doing a Terraform videos. Probably in my upcoming videos you will see all different types of exercises that we do. I'm providing all this information for free, and please don't forget to subscribe, and please don't forget to like my videos, and stay tuned. Okay, so let's continue with the demo. And once you can see all these AWS key pair, VPC, and everything is being created, it might take a couple of minutes for you to start this, apply your changes to your AWS account. Okay, so let's take some time. Okay, AWS instance is still being created, and you can see, yeah, apply is complete. As you can see, now we have successfully applied the changes to our AWS infrastructure. So how we can make sure that we have created all these resources? So one way to do is you go back to the your console and type EC2 over here and go back. Oh, I'm sorry, I think we are already in EC2. So you can see there is one instance which is already running, and click on that, and you see the dev node which we have created, and T2 micro is still initializing US East 1C. This is the security group that we have attached to this one, and this is still running. There is no public IP yet, I think. I don't know why. Let's refresh that a couple of times. Let's give it a couple of minutes. So also you can see our dev VPC is being created. So you can see this is our dev VPC, and if I expand this, you have also created our CIDRs, which is 10.0.0.0.16, and then route tables. Also we have created dev public internet gateway. So you can see we have applied all the infrastructure changes that we want, and you should be able to find out all this information from your console. And the other way that we have just discussed is by simply typing something called Terraform state. So for example, if I do Terraform state, so we should be able to see Terraform state list. Okay, state list. So we should be able to see what are the resources that we have created. For example, we have created AMI, EC2 Instance, Gateway, Deployer. So what is a Terraform state? So basically Terraform state is nothing but the remote, for example, after you apply, so whatever the state that is applied to your AWS infrastructure, so that Terraform keeps track of all the state changes that you have made in your AWS infrastructure, okay, so that it should be able to communicate with the AWS, right? So as soon as you Terraform apply, what happens is it makes an API call to the AWS and get all the resources and save that in the state file. Okay, so we will discuss about the state files in the future videos, states and all that stuff, but for now you can see there is a file which is created, which is called terraform.tstate, tf state, which has all the information which we have created in our infrastructure. Okay, this is basically the JSON data that you have, and this contains all the state information. Okay, for now this tf state is stored in our local, but you can also store this tf state in your S3 bucket or in your Terraform cloud, or you can store the Terraform state wherever you want. If you think this is not secure in your local, just you can maintain that in an S3 bucket or something like that. Okay, I would recommend use S3 bucket. Okay, now that we have created, we know that state of our AWS infrastructure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the data, and I want to see what is the public IP of my AWS instance that we have just created. I'm just going to copy this AWS instance, and then I'm going to do Terraform state show, and then paste the my EC2 instance, and you will see the JSON data that is written by the AWS instance. Okay, so if I scroll up, you should be able to see a lot of information from our AWS instance, and you can also see the ARN for our EC2 instance. And if I scroll down a bit more, you can see somewhere in the public IP, you should be able to see the public IP. For some reason I'm not able to see the public IP. Private DNS, hang on a sec, something is wrong in here. I'm not able to see the public IP, or maybe let's simply public IP. Looks like the associate public IP address is set to false. I don't know why, but let's figure out why. Okay, and okay, so fine, let me go back to the console one more time and go to EC2 instances. That's my running instance. If I click that, so there is no public IP here. Why? Because maybe let's check the VPC first, and let's see if we have done something wrong. Okay, just clear this out and just close this and go to your data sources. This is my AMI. I think that is still correct. And if I scroll down, EC2 instance, T2 micro, AMI, address key, I'm using the key, security group, AWS subnet.main.id, user data and size, and that looks correct to me. All right, and let's see if we have missed something. I think if you're not clear on this, just maybe you can simply remove this stuff. Just want to make sure that I don't make any mistake in here. And then okay, EC2 instance looks good to me, but why we're not getting it? Let's go back to the main.tf file and let's figure out what's wrong in here. subnet. I think we are missing map public IP on launch. Okay, also make sure you set it to true. Also make sure you can also mention your availability zone, yeah, and then set it to whatever you like. In my case, I'm going to use US East 1A. Just save that. Okay, and then internet gateway, and we have route table, AWS main.id, route, and we have, all right, AWS subnet.main.id. Is this the subnet ID? I'm not sure if that is a subnet ID. Yeah, that looks like the subnet ID. And then route table RT. Yeah, I think that looks correct. I think I missed the map public IP on launch. Maybe just save that, and okay, open up your terminal one more time and try this time. You can do Terraform plan again in order to see what's going to change in your infrastructure. Okay, so previously we have created our infrastructure, but due to some settings missing from our AWS subnet, where we were not able to map the public IP. So if I scroll up, so you can see some of the services EC2 instance is now being replaced. Okay, and you can see the CPU options. Okay, subnet is replaced, and okay, that looks good to me. There are about 3 changes that are going to be applied now. Okay, not every change. Okay, just 3 changes are going to apply. So this time it's going to be quick, I think. Terraform apply, and you can use auto approve. If you don't want to type yes, you just simply hit auto approve, so that will automatically approve your changes and then deploy your changes to your AWS infrastructure. Okay, so let's wait for it for some time. Okay, there you go. Now the apply is complete, and now if you type Terraform state list, and let's look at the EC2 instance again. Copy that, Terraform state show, and then AWS instance dot my EC2 instance. Okay, so now we should be able to see the public IP, at least I'm guessing. So if I scroll up, yeah, there you go. There's the public IP, and this is what I was trying to look for. And now how do you read that the ID? So we have seen the Terraform state list, state show, and now I'm going to show you another command, which is Terraform console. Okay, in Terraform console you can directly interact with your state. For example, I want to see the public IP. Okay, for example, I want to see the public IP, right? So now I'm going to paste AWS instance my EC2 instance dot public IP. Okay, so there you go. It's as simple as that. You can simply get it. If you want to see the whole my EC2 instance, you just hit enter. You can see the whole thing over here. Okay, so in our case we have now seen the public IP. Just clear this. Oh, oops, just exit from it. And that's how you're gonna use the Terraform console, right? And we have seen Terraform format, which is going to format my Terraform files. And another command I would like to show you, which is Terraform validate, which is basically going to validate the Terraform configuration and how you are going to create your infrastructure. So now that it says success, the configuration is valid, which means Terraform understands what you're trying to create in your infrastructure, right? So yeah, and that's how you're going to use Terraform validate, and that's going to show some errors if Terraform doesn't understand any of your configuration from your Terraform code. Okay, and also you can output the deployment plan. For example, we have seen Terraform plan out. We have seen Terraform plan, right? So I'm gonna create a file plan.out, which is basically outputs all the Terraform plan into this file, and basically you can use this file to apply again. Okay, so it's not needed, but I'm just saying there's another way you can use this Terraform plan. Okay, and also you can have Terraform refresh. Basically Terraform refresh is going to reconcile your state in the Terraform state file with the real world resources. Okay, so I'm not going to use it right now, but I'm going to give you the link in the description box below where you can see all the Terraform commands which are used. Okay, also another Terraform command that I would like to show you is basically the Terraform workspace. So you can create a workspace for your dev, production, or your staging environments where you should be able to create a different workspaces. Okay, so Terraform workspace, and then type new, and then type the name, for example my dev workspace. Okay, so this is going to create your dev workspace. So in that way you can switch between these resources, like Terraform workspace select my dev workspace, or Terraform workspace select my production workspace. You can select these workspaces and work on those workspaces so that you will not impact anything in production accidentally. So I hope workspaces helps you in that way, and make sure that is the best practice that you could use. All right, and also you can import the Terraform resources. Also you can import the resources which are created outside of Terraform, and you can import them into your Terraform so that Terraform will be able to manage those resources on behalf of you. Okay, and also you can there's one more thing I would like to discuss, which is outputs.tf file. For example, I want to create output.tf file, which will basically create an output out of my after apply. So for example, output dev public IP. Okay, this is the name I would like to give, and the value will be AWS instance dot my EC2 instance dot public IP. Okay, so as soon as you can create any number of outputs you want. Okay, for example, after apply I would like to print my public IP. So how are you going to do it? Basically, if you run Terraform apply auto approve one more time, so you should be able to see the public IP automatically after you apply. Okay, so that is now running Terraform apply, and after it finishes the apply, so there you go, it automatically print my public IP of my EC2 instance. Okay, so that's how outputs are going to help you. If you don't know, if you want to see what is the output, you can also type Terraform output like so. So it should give you the output. Okay, so that is so easy for you to get the outputs from your output command, so that you can use this IP and copy that and go to the browser and paste it over here. You should be able to go to continue to site. Yeah, there you go, and now you can see our message from our EC2 instance, which says hello from AWS Cloud Demos, and this will give you this was actually set up by our user data, like I've said previously in my user data.tpl. so we have set up this in here, so which is the default script for my EC2 instance, and enables on the port number 80, which is allowed from our security group. All right, so this is a simple way to create your resources, and you can manage it, you can version this, and you can also revert back easily if you want to have, if you think your previous infrastructure worked well, and you can switch back to your previous infrastructure and deploy it without a headache. Okay, so I think you have already seen the benefits of Terraform. I don't think I need to explain it again. I think you very well understood how Terraform is helping you to create your infrastructure on the fly. Okay, yeah, and there you go, and you have now created your application, and your application is serving the pages very well. Okay, the one more thing, the last command that I would like to demo here is something called Terraform destroy. Okay, so which should automatically destroy all your resources that you have created, and you can also pass auto approve over here, which will automatically destroy all the resources you have created. Okay, which is an easy way for you to destroy all the resources at once. And now this is all being deleted. It takes a minute, and it is trying to delete everything. If you scroll up, you can see everything is deleted, destroyed, and give it a minute or so, you should be able to destroy everything. Nice one. So we have destroyed pretty much all our infrastructure, and now if you hit refresh on this page, your infrastructure is no longer available. And just refresh and you can see your resources are being terminated and there's no resources. And if you go to VPC, and your VPC must also be deleted by now, I think. Go to VPC and see, this is the default VPC and the dev node is already deleted. Okay, and now let's all right, so we have seen how we can set up our EC2 instance. Okay, we will look at how we are going to go and do SSH into our EC2 instance. Okay, and also we will see how we are going to create a dependency graph. Okay, so I think we have destroyed our EC2 instance. So let me go ahead and try to apply our infrastructure one more time, and I will just show you how to SSH into our EC2 instance. Okay, so we already have our public key over here, so we're going to use our public key to SSH into our EC2 instance in a minute. Okay, let it create. All right, so now the apply is complete. All right, I already have my dev public IP over here. You can just copy that. But and now we are going to SSH into my EC2 instance. Okay, SSH -I, and then you're gonna paste the my key. Oops, I'm gonna simply use my key, and then Ubuntu @IP, and that's how I'm gonna enter into my EC2 instance and type yes. Fig instructions, that's fine. No, yeah, there you go. You have now logged into your Ubuntu. As you can see, you have now logged in to your Ubuntu, and if you go to cd var etc, maybe let's go to Apache www. Sorry, let's go to var do ls. You should be able to go to www ls cd html ls. You can just cat index.html. so there you go. This is our file which is being replaced by our user data. Okay, so now that you have seen how the SSH is working, so let's exit from our EC2 instance and then also try and create the dependency graph that we are just talking about, and we'll create a graph file, something like Terraform graph, and then I'm gonna pipe that to .tpng and then output to graph.png. Okay, so now that this should be able to create a graph.png file, something over here, and if I click on that file, so you can see the dependency graph nicely. You can see our VPC has a dependency with internet gateway, route table, subnet, and then security groups and all that stuff. Security groups have ports, 3 ports, and EC2 instance have a dependency of AMI, and you can see this dependency graph nice and easy for your Terraform infrastructure that you have just created. All right, so that is pretty much okay. And if I go to, and then don't forget to Terraform destroy auto approve. So that's going to destroy my infrastructure, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And the code is hosted in here, Terraform AWS snippets. If you go to my GitHub, and don't forget to follow me, and if you go to Terraform AWS snippets, in here you see that AWS DF VPC basics. So I have created the repository here, and you can see all the code, and just clone the repository or fork it if you want, and then you can modify if you want, And that's pretty much the basics of the Terraform. I think we have discussed beyond the basics, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe, and please don't forget to like the video and share the video, and please don't forget to comment down in the comment sections below. And in the upcoming videos, I'm gonna do a lot of Terraform code, and I hope you will enjoy it, and I hope you will wait for those videos. And thank you so much. I will see you in the next one.